We have breaking news. I'm just going to read it straight off the Washington Post. The United States has charged Edward Snowden with espionage. Here's the quote. Federal prosecutors have filed a sealed criminal complaint against Edward Snowden, the former National Security Agency contractor who leaked a trove of documents about top-secret surveillance programs. The United States has asked Hong Kong to detain him on a provisional arrest warrant, according to U.S. officials. Is Hong Kong going to go through with it? What's next?
Well, it's interesting to see what's next. Those charges are not unexpected. I think from the moment that this story broke, it was expected that he would be charged with espionage, and we'll have to see, of course, what the next steps are. Incidentally, just earlier today, CNN was reporting that he's been offered a flight to Iceland, not necessarily, of course, that they're willing to take over responsibility for him, but maybe it's more people who are concerned about privacy rights offering to pay for his travel to Iceland to at least meet with individuals over there who might be willing to help and hear his story. Hong Kong, of course, hasn't made any determinations itself, though, as we've seen, he's been on somewhat of a PR campaign there in terms of trying to shore up some support for his case by giving interviews to local papers, talking about why he did what he did, and also revealing that the U.S. government was in fact also spying on Chinese students as well as other government officials. So that sort of ups the interests that Hong Kong might have, and Beijing, of course, playing a role too in not necessarily handing him over. But there will be a lot of pressure on any government, whether we're looking at Hong Kong or whether we're looking at Iceland, if he does in fact make it there, to hand him over to the U.S. when he's facing charges that effectively would probably seal his fate to spend the rest of his life in prison if convicted and charged.
Yes or no question, is this going to tip public opinion against Edward Snowden?
It's interesting. I think that there is a faction of people who have, turned him into a hero and said that his acts have indeed been heroic. He's willing to put everything on the line to get this information out to the public. But the reality is that, as we've talked about on this program too, there hasn't been a lot of outrage over the actual NSA programs themselves and the surveillance. A lot of Americans, more than half, have shown their support for the government to take whatever measures it deems necessary in the name of national security. That's the trend that we've seen as people continue to obsess over the threat of terrorism. And because of that, I'm not entirely sure that we're going to see people taking to the streets to protest charges against Edward Snowden or that he be prosecuted. Incidentally, even if you go to Capitol Hill, and I know this from my time reporting there, even if you go to the critics like Cassandra Rand Paul or Ron Wyden or Jeff Merkley, they're very reluctant to actually say that Snowden shouldn't be charged. They aren't ones to go so far as call him a traitor, and they're happy that he revealed what he did, but they also recognize that he broke the law, and because of the intelligence they have access to, they still see the actions as somewhat dangerous because in their minds, they don't want to go so far as take a position that they should be soft on Snowden and recognize that he did this for some kind of greater good. That's just not still a viable position, unfortunately, within Congress or even across the broader part of the public.